That makes it exactly 8 months of that strike. And, well, that's that. Thankfully, there were a lot of interventions from all across, the place, just so that us could go back to the schools, the classrooms, and everything. And of course, all of that has gone on. There are many people who indicate the intervention of the Minister of Labor, the Minister of Education, and of course, what the university, community considers an upset of sorts when the federal government had to take them to court, and the court order came and told them what they needed to do and all of that. So that's a little disturbing, but hey, that's water under the bridge. Those who will also indicate that no less impact was made by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who kept intervening and saying, look, we know that something has been done by governments to help call off the strike, but that is that. All of that is done with now. Now, there's something that the Speaker of the House of Representatives said, and that's the fact that these strikes must not happen again. Perhaps in line with that is when the President himself in the speech, budget speech, said 470 billion naira has been earmarked for some of the issues that the ASU raised, the revitalization and of the universities and all of that. But there's something that the President also said, that the government alone cannot fund the university system. I mean, he also said, and I quote, in most countries, the cost of education is jointly shared between the government and the people, especially at the tertiary level. He said it is imperative, therefore, that we introduce a more sustainable model of funding tertiary education. That is the truth. But then don't also forget that the responsibility of government to educate the people is a constitutional duty. It is in the Constitution that as much as is possible for the governments, whether federal, state, or local, I'm not sure right now, the people should be educated as much as is possible, or maybe where the resources are available. Isn't that a caveat in a way for government to say, we won't be able to do it all the time, and where we are not able to do it, we should just leave it? I don't know. So maybe that's something that the National Assembly want to look at again and say, is this something that is compulsory? Is it the responsibility of the federal government, the responsibility of the state governments, or the responsibility of the local governments? That's one end of the divide. Another angle to that conversation is the gradation of education, of tertiary education. Most of the time, when we talk about tertiary education, we're only talking about the university system. Hey, what happened to polytechnics? What happened to technical education? Isn't that the reason why the 6334 system was set up? That if by the first 3 years of your secondary education, we know that you are not cut out for academics, you are cut out for technical stuff, you should be moved over? What has happened to that? How come we seem to give more prominence to academic education when the technical things are the ones that have helped countries like Asia, India, a number of other countries all over the world like that, to develop themselves, develop their human capital, and be able to do well for themselves? These are arguments that I think, are important for us to look at, because there are those who would say, we've had computer science students who never saw a computer before they left school. Anyway, maybe that's history now. I sincerely want to hope that that is history. Now, still talking about tertiary education, and a very disturbing, fact came out about a student in Unilag that was failed. It is a Twitter user who is a student of ASU herself, says that they failed. She said, and I quote, "Unilag failed my friend." And she used a street language. They did him strong thing. And that, this fellow, had some occurrence, they thought it was food poisoning. They took him to the school clinic or something, a medical center, they call it. It took him there like maybe 2 or 3 times. And they alleged it was food poisoning. Found out later that it wasn't food poisoning because the pain wouldn't subside despite giving him drips upon injections and drugs and all those things. And it just wouldn't go under. And then after some time, they finally took him to, I think they took him to Luth or something. And when they got to this school, was it Luth or, FMC in Butemeta, they found out that, okay, he had appendicitis. So they finally took him to surgery after about, well, definitely not the same day. Took him to surgery, and the doctor told him that the appendix had burst about 8 hours before. So that all of the time that they were taking him back and forth, this guy was going to university classrooms to write his exams, and all of a sudden he wasn't able. He fainted right there. His course advisor was said to have joined in taking him to a clinic, and when that wouldn't seem to solve the problem, it took him to an ambulance. They were moving him from place to place until they finally got him to a place where he had this thing. All of that happened to this young man, and that was last year. Now, this is what is instructive. When this young lady said they failed her friend, was because the course advisor is an official of the university system. The head of department, or the department, by the way, is the Department of Faculty of Management Science or Business Administration, Department of Industrial Relations and Personnel Management at UNILAG. So the HOD was aware. They took the school ambulance, the university ambulance, to take this young man or woman, this student, to the place where the surgery finally happened. And the school wrote off the medical fees. Guess what? At the end of the day, this young fellow was failed by the school. The results showed failed, not absent. This is something that the school was aware of. What is the implication? Now, this is the fear of the friend of this fellow who was ill. One of the concerns that was expressed was, what is now left in his GPA? They failed him. Someone that was in the hospital, they told him to write letters. He wrote letters unendingly. They had him carry over all the ones he missed. Why? For something out of his control. What is now left in his GPA after carrying a whole semester over? That's one of the concerns. Now, she also said something. She said that, look, it was about time. I pray he gets justice, because if he wants to apply for jobs and scholarships in future, they will be asking for a particular CGPA. Now, that is painful enough. Thankfully, the UNILAG system has themselves responded to the allegations, so to speak. UNILAG Nigeria, at UNILAG Nigeria is the school handle, says, the academic, mental, and physical well-being of our students is of topmost importance to us. Steps are already being taken to resolve this issue within the statutory requirements for results processing, exemption from examination, deferment of semesters, sessions, and so on. Please note that the Office of the DSA, Director of Academic Affairs and Counseling Unit, are readily available to help students navigate various issues. Our students, as well as their parents, guardians, are encouraged to approach any of these offices for the prompt resolution of issues. This attempt by parents and the students themselves started last year. This tweet that I'm reading to you, if you go check it yourself, it was sent 7:03 a.m., 15th October 2022. Just today. Oh, wait, am I missing that? Today is 15, right? Yeah. I just needed to confirm. UNILAG just responded today after many months. September last year, this whole thing started. And ASU was not on strike at the time. And this has happened to this young man. Now, many times when I say, let's decrypt government, in this case, let's decrypt UNILAG. Was it the school system that is doing this to this young fellow? Or was it just one person who was supposed to take action? Well, we understand that the student has been asked to write another letter. Good. Question: what happened to all the letters he or she wrote before now? since last year, while ASU was not on strike. What happened to all those letters? Whose head is going to roll? Who's going to be punished for that? How are we going to ensure that this doesn't happen to other students? And if you check that Twitter thread, you'll find out that it's not just something that's happened at UNILAG, it's happened at so many other universities all across the country. So you want to ask yourself, why would students have confidence in the university system if they are not confident that their personal lives are valued by the school that is supposed to help them build a better Nigeria? Ponder on that, and let's take a look at what we have lined up for you today. Oh, incidentally, the first item, ASU resumes the task ahead. So all of that, that's the first thing we're going to be looking at. And the second will be a focus on disease surveillance and control, some activities of the NCDC. We understand that a number of things are happening in various other parts of the world now. We'll deal with that. And then there's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's October. What's the essence of that pink color? That and a number of other things. And then Jan's company program competition. Jan is Junior Achievement Nigeria. You'll find out more about that later on. On Lifestyle today, we want to look at food allergies and intolerances. What are those? Do you suddenly have certain reactions to some things? Even water? I don't know if that's a thing, but we'll find out about that later on. Our artist of the week is also lined up for today, and we'll wrap up Sunrise this morning. Until that time, let's begin with this one, and right after we'll be back to take on the first issue for the day. Grab your cup and let's have some fun. We'll be right back.
We must stand for Nigeria. I believe, Nigeria. Wishing on a star to take me where you are. Wishing on a dream, no matter how far it seems. Everywhere I go, to see the love and flow, in unity to stand forth, from south up to the north. Only when there's love can there be no cause to fight. Only when we fear God can everything be alright. Free and wise, you're not gonna take my hand. And everything will be alright. Stand for the truth, without the problem now from the roots. Pick up yourself now, pick up on the youth. Anybody cause a problem now, make them kaput. Stand together now, people no fighting. One love is what we are preaching. Let's upgrade our understanding and stop this nonsense political doubting. That's potential, demand capacity, let's walk the walk and let's show the world. Say our head, yeah. Let's stand up for something, fight for the right thing, or whatever, moving for the future. Cause I believe in this entity called Nigeria. I believe in peace and unity. One Nigeria. We should live like sister and brother. Find a way to love each other. One love, one life, one Nigeria. If we stand as one, oh my God, unity will only make us stronger. Don't let them divide us any longer. Cause there are no bad tribes, only bad people. No north and south.
So that's where we begin sunrise this beautiful Saturday morning, 15th of October. ASU resumes. What's the task ahead? Of course, it's not news to you that the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, suspended its 8-month strike on October 14. Well, it was called to compel the federal government to take some actions and do some things to help improve the university system. All of that, of course, is something that we all understand, but what are the tasks ahead? It's been 8 months, and this is not the first time ASU has gone on strike. It's been on for something in the region of, 30 years now, repeating the same issue over and over again. Let's have a conversation around this with Mr. John Oloyede, who is a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We also have Mr. Kayode. Oh, is that doctor or professor? Kayode Isuola, who is a research associate, a professor of political science, UNILAG. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Which we shouldn't take away that prof part of it because you paid for it.
What does it matter?
It does matter. You worked for it. And of course, we have the new president of the National Association of Nigerian Students, Umar Barambo, joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Okay, but let's begin with you, Mr. Isuola. So, do you think, this has been on for a while. First of all, let me take you up on that issue, if you don't mind, that we raised of the UNILAG student that was, I don't know, is that what they call rusticated? Or the student was failed, according to the co-student. What do you make of it? I usually like to decrypt institutions. It's all reduced to one person's action at any given time.
Well, I don't have the facts of the matter. I was listening partially to your analysis on the television. That wasn't loud enough for me, so I couldn't get the details. But all I can say is that the university has a system. UNILAG has a very strong system that ensures that no student is short paid. I know so. I do not only teach and work and do research in UNILAG. I schooled there. First degree, second degree, doctoral, until as I speak. So a lot of things could have gone wrong. I'll advise that you speak directly to the spokesperson of the university, and then you get facts and figures that I may not have as I sit.
No, I'm not even going. I'm not putting you on the spot for that. Just asking you because you're from there. The reason I ask because when you say there is a system, what's the system for a student who fell ill while writing exams in school under the supervision of the course advisor and the HOD?
Well, the much I know is that you must officially report to the university that you are ill, and that report must be processed. It is not just to the table of the course advisor or the HOD. It must get to certain levels of administration.
The question is, they were there when it happened.
Yeah.
They were there. This fellow couldn't have been able to write any letter. They were there. The HOD was there. The course advisor was there. I would have expected that maybe they would do a report and say this happened to a student.
So, you see, they were there. It's different from you are writing. I'm not a lawyer, but a lawyer will speak. It has to be formal. The university doesn't operate on I was there.
Yeah.
It has to be formal somehow, some way. This is not defending negligence on somebody's part if this is established. But I tell you, there's a system that is strong and well established that ensures that no student is short paid. I'm a product of that system. I think you should listen to it.
Okay, we'll wait
before
for the school to also know. But speaking to the ASU issue, do you feel ASU is? Do you feel validated as a lecturer that the reason for which we went on strike has been, significantly addressed?
Thank you very much. It's rather a shame of a nation that we allowed our universities to be shut for 8 months. What was ASU asking for? revitalization of the universities owned by the federal government and the state government, submission of the reports of the visitation panel to the universities owned by the federal government, removal of IPPIS that has been globally notoriously registered as being fraudulent and corruption ridden, revitalization of the university, payment of earned allowances, not just allowances, they have been earned, some as far back as 2005 or 2009. And then finally, human resources must be encouraged so that there will be motivation within the system. If these are all the issues on ground for ASU, today the struggle went and we are where we are. I am not, to go back to your question, straight to point, I don't think I feel 100% fulfilled. Because what we got could have been much more. One, two, we didn't need 8 months of time wasting of the intellectual box of the nation, of the world, to arrive at this. We also don't need to starve our lecturers and their families, including their aged parents, to arrive at this. It is sad. It's a thing of mixed feeling. I don't want to shed tears here, but let's hope never again should and will Nigeria experience this kind of thing in history of the country.
Oh, well, I think I'll take it from where Professor Isuola ended. I'll pick his words, the shame of a nation. For me, I'm not in the academic world, but my conclusion is nothing has been gained in 8 months. Nothing has been gained. ASU had an 8-point demand from inception. These are not demands that started 8 months ago. I think I read somewhere that in about 23 years, there have been 16 strike actions at the instance of ASU in respect of the same heads of claim. And now, what was the reason given by the leadership of ASU for calling off the strike? It says, well, due to the intervention of particularly the head of the lower house of assembly, Mr. Agbajabiamila Miller, the intervention of notable Nigerians, the appeal of the respected Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we're calling off this strike. We have not achieved most of the things we asked for. But because of the intervention, we'll call it off, hoping that the demands will be met. Now, we're in election season. We have this penchant for sweeping under the carpet our big problems until the elections are over to be inherited by the incoming government. And that is what we have done again, an escape route so that the election, a lot of things are happening. People are being freed from jail, compromises are being made, politicians are doing their usual things. Oh, ASU must go. So that when they get to the campaign time, they go, oh, we solved the ASU problem. It is not that the problem, it's not ASU's problem. It's like Professor Isola said, what they were asking for. Very simple things. Proliferation of universities. You keep on issuing, the existing universities are not well funded. And you keep on.
One of the issues that one might want to look at in that regard is, are you sympathetic to the claims that the federal government has that, look, the country doesn't have so much resources anymore to meet some of these demands of us?
Well, that vanishes in the face of the fact that we're borrowing money, we're spending money, and we see the political class throwing money around. foreign currency. It's not speculative. We see it. The flamboyance.
The politicians' money is not the federal government's money.
Where did the money come from? Do they print money?
It's not the federal government's money, unless someone will come out and say, I saw them taken from the till. But one other issue that we want to look at, from your perspective, we'll go to Mr. Barambu shortly. One of the issues I'd like to also look at is the fact that, look, at the end of the day, the issues that are being talked about, as you said, have not really been significantly addressed.
No.
The tasks ahead are there for ASU, are there for the students, are there for the university systems themselves.
Yes.
What progress do you see being made by any of these, body heads?
Well, let me just clear one point. When you say the monies we see all around us, they are not monies belonging to politicians, do not belong to the federal government. You have a situation where an assemblyman, a member of the political class, earns 45 million, I think, in a month. And a professor who had dedicated his life, before you become a professor in the academic world, you probably will spend like 20, 30 years, earns 450,000. How does it make one feel? So I'll leave that. But now, talking about, look, going forward, what is in this for the different parties involved in the matter? Well, I suppose the students should be well, I mean, they are going back to school. The student leadership, I mean, when we were in school, I attended IFE. We never suffered fools. Every time, yes, we were always coming home, but we were always getting things. Pushing things forward. I think student unionism should go back to what it used to be, because student union leaders should stop fraternizing with politicians. I'm not saying they cannot negotiate, they cannot discuss, but then there should be that boundary beyond which you do not go, you do not compromise. Student leadership, I'm happy the leader is with us this morning. I think they should take it. It's not a fight for lecturers, because most of the things the lecturers are asking for, they are for the benefit of the students. I was joking with my daughter yesterday. I told her that we were discussing something about science, and I'm a lawyer, and she probably did something. I said, you see, I'm a very smart lawyer. I know science and all that. And she said, and she said, yeah, but I am a science student in Unilag. And I said, which Unilag? You use kerosene stove in your labs instead of Bunsen burner. Is that how you know Bunsen burner? I said, I used Bunsen burner in secondary school. Many universities don't have that now in their laboratories. So the student union leadership, they have a lot to do. ASU, well, they've tried. I sympathize with them. Many of them are stuck. They've never done anything. I mean, the lecturers, they don't know anything else to do other than to teach. They don't earn money from other sources. But they are fighting to protect a territory. They are fighting to make it, they say Unilag is the best in Nigeria. That's what we're saying then. And is among the 401 to 500 in the world. It's a shame. And then the Nigerian leadership, the government. If you forsake the educational sector, ASU says 26% of the budget should be given to education. It's not asking for too much.
Okay, let's bring in Mr. Barambo here now, the president of the National Association of Nigerian Students. You've listened to a little bit of all that we've been talking about, and you also heard Mr. Olojede's comment. Mr. Oloyede, beg your pardon's comment that we needed to go back to the way things were. First of all, let me begin with you by asking, what's your take on the resolution so far with ASU, between ASU and the federal government? Are you comfortable that indeed, there is light at the end of the tunnel, or you have your reservations?
Okay. Good morning. Well, like you said, definitely I have my reservations. But before I answer that question, I just want to correct our lecturer, that's the legal man. You see, there are a lot of things that we at the student level need to inform the public. For example, now you are talking about us joining hands to contribute our own quota towards solving this issue. But unfortunately, the student leadership doesn't know the actual problem between the ASU and the federal government. Talking about the cause of the strike. Now, you made mention of 8 points. Immediately we come on board, we started reaching out, both the government, the ASU, and of course all the stakeholders that are involved. Unfortunately, we personally requested that the student leadership should be carried along in that negotiation, not to negotiate, but to observe the negotiation process so that we will know where the problem is coming from. Today, if you approach government, they will tell you that, okay, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do this, we have to do that. We are going to do this, we are going to do that. If they do this, they do that. If you approach ASU, they will tell you nothing has been done. But we said, please, let us be in there as observers so that we will know at the end of the day, the fault is coming from which side. The Minister of Labour, Chris Ngige, accepted that. But the ASU president said, no, it is not in their tradition to invite anybody in their negotiation process between them and the federal government. And we say, Prof, it's not about tradition or constitution or anything, but we didn't say we are going to negotiate for you or intervene, but we will be there as observers. So that if you place 8 demand, the government promised to do the 8, we are saying, okay, please, let's go back to class and continue. And they didn't do that. It is we that will say, no, you are at fault. But we didn't know that. So you have to carry us along for us to know the actual problem so that we can quickly come in on that aspect. Then secondly, that is the same thing I said to the ASU president and the federal government, that shift grounds at least 8 months is not 8 days. Let's go back to the class. Then negotiation continues. But 8 months is not an easy one for us, the student. So to us, it's a welcome development that at least there is a small agreement between the ASU and the federal government. And I like what you said, that they respected the president and the head of the lower chamber, Femi Bajamiamila. That is exactly what we did. Immediately I emerged as president of NANS. I sent a letter to the president that please quickly intervene. We equally do same to the speaker. They quickly intervene. And they have answered our call. They have intervened. And here we are.
Well, Mr. Barambu, one other question that comes naturally following what you just said now is, what's the assurance that it's not going to happen again tomorrow? We know that the president of ASU has said any strike shouldn't last beyond 2 days or thereabout, or maybe even 2 weeks tops. That's what the president of ASU had said. And we also find it on, in the news now, our Channels Television also covered that story, where the Speaker of the House of Representatives said strikes should never happen again. But if all the issues have not been satisfactorily addressed, and you just heard the example of Bunsen burner, which is supposed to be used, not being used. Instead, we have kerosene stoves in science laboratories being used. These are some of the issues that ASU has been asking that government should revitalize the university system, but it hasn't significantly done that or satisfactorily done that. What if tomorrow ASU says these issues have not been addressed, we're going to have to call out another strike?
Okay, now on the issue of that revitalization fee, according to our findings, the ASU and FG once agreed that it should be a 200 billion naira yearly for the TED fund to take care of that. But this present administration, according to our findings, are giving 360 billion now, 150 billion on top of the 200 billion as agreed. And equally, in that same letter we sent to the president, we asked him to put in more. And while we are going through the 2023 budget, we saw 460 billion. We thank him for that. But on this note, I would like to call on the ASU leadership that they should checkmate the vice chancellors, those that are doing the contract from the TED fund, and the stakeholders involved in this issue of a TED fund contract. It's not an easy one. For example, now, government will approve a contract of so billion to do this, to do that. But I'm not saying the vice chancellors used to corner the contract or something like that. But you will find out that people are not doing it up to standard. The ASU should quickly start looking towards that by checkmating the contract. We are doing our own, but they have to do their own too, so that at least we will not be having all these problems. Because if we do that, it's going to help us. Now, issue of the bouncing bonner and the issue that you are talking about, it's not only that. There are a lot of things that are happening. But we have the TED fund, and they have the resources. It is their duty to do that.
Okay. Well, Prof, I'm sure you want to respond to some of the things that the young man said.
Thank you very much. Let me start from Barrister Oleyede. He understands the problem. He knows the reasons ASU went on strike. Perhaps the information to be added is that when we agreed to call off the strike, there were certain undercurrents between the union and the leadership of the country. You could call it promise, as usual, but maybe promise that seems to show, I'm quoting the president of ASU now, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Let us hope so, and then continue to pray for Nigeria and for the university system so that we can get things done. As they are now, things are terrible in the Nigerian university system. I mean, a student of mine was in my office yesterday. The intention was to break the good news that she just got a job. And then, what's your salary? 560,000 naira. As a degree holder, first degree holder in political science. Now, a lecturer too in the university, somebody who has a PhD, does not earn 180,000 naira as they are. How do you run a nation like that? Are you not pushing the youngsters into criminality, into yahoo yahoo, into ritual money saga, even into terrorism? Because man, by nature, will survive first. Once you cannot survive on what to do, you look elsewhere. Let's hope that the undercurrents of the agreement, which will be made public later at the appropriate time by the national leadership of the union, let's hope those agreements will bring us good things. For NANS, I want to appreciate NANS and the role that the association played in this struggle. We can historicize it. In 1974, a few students of the University of Lagos were to be denied their examination because they could not pay. There was a semblance of protest, which led to riot. And as it happened in Unilag, it was happening in Ife, UI, Uniben, Nsukka, and there were about just 5 universities across the nation as at that time, really. And they were all owned by the federal government. The federal government ultimately decided to cancel the fees, and that snowballed into a policy, the decree that established the Nigerian Student Loan Board. That was not done by lecturer. That is a product of the students' struggle. So Nigerian students, many of whom are now lecturers and professors, have always been part of the development of the Nigerian educational system. So to that extent, I appreciate NANS. That being stated, The next president will not convince me very well if he says he does not really understand the problem. You don't have to sit in the negotiation table to know that your lecturers are not well paid. Their salaries are in the public space. You don't have to be in that meeting to know that your universities are not well equipped.
I don't think that's what he's saying.
Yes.
I think the issue he's saying is, look, even if they know the facts from experience as students themselves, it's not a whimsical idea that ASU took to the federal government. They wrote them all out.
Yes.
Just as Mr. Olori is saying that, look, I know that they have an 8-point agenda. Mr. Barambo has also mentioned that they are aware of some of these things. But what I think they are suggesting, and he's not the only one, even the previous president said that, look, we're not negotiating. We just want to be there. So that we can help you hold the federal government with whom you came into this agreement responsible and accountable.
Good. But the response of the national president is that it is not in the tradition of ASU. Let us take what he has said as a suggestion to be considered in the future. But ASU has a very strong tradition. Remember, you are dealing with a union of intellectuals. You don't change anything without going to the bottom. Remember when the strike was to be called off, the national president was accosted and said, okay, now that you have agreed, are you going to call off the strike? He didn't have the power. He needed to come back to each of the branches and democratically take into consideration people's opinion before you go back to the national. So if this is going to happen, it's not a bad suggestion, I must confess. I was only saying that at now, you don't need to be at the meeting to know the realities of the problem. But we can suggest that going forward, future engagement should involve students. As a matter of fact, one of my suggestions that I will give is that the university autonomy should empower the university councils to decide what happens in the university. It came in 2004. It's there on paper, but government is not respecting it. And in addition to that autonomy is that students must, as a matter of compulsion, must be represented in the council of the university, because university is all about students. If democracy is what we are practicing, and we go to countries around the world from whom we borrowed the current university ideas, in the UK, in the United States, student first. There's hardly any council of any university in which student is not represented. So students must be represented so that their opinions will count in the process of...
Absolutely, I was going to ask you about that. That, look, is there a law that needs to be adjusted to factor in students being brought into the room when conversations around their future is being discussed?
Well, personally, I'm not aware of any law. But I know that as a matter of prudence, that is what should be the norm. When issues, I mean, you cannot shave someone's head behind him. As you say, we're fighting because our students are not getting quality education. If the lecturer is not well paid, he will not give his best. If the facilities are not okay, the students will not get the best. You understand? In some schools, you hear of students complaining that, oh, lecturers are always throwing out handouts for students to pay for. Because the lecturers have to survive too. So they have devised a means to raise additional income. And then there are standing rules that say, no, you can't do that. But they still go ahead and do it. Do you understand? So there is no, I mean, you must always hear the other side. You can't take certain decisions without factoring them in. But then, the bigger picture, when you look at it, is this. Autonomy. Prof mentioned that. Everything we are talking about is about autonomy. If the universities is on ground, it's part of the understanding that, like they said, there's judicial independence in Nigeria today. And yet, it is still a subject matter before courts. There was a strike last year where we were here discussing it, where they said, oh, there is independence, and the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria had to intervene at some point in time on this issue of, oh, this money should go directly to the court system, where the chief judge to manage it. The same thing with universities. There is an understanding that says, oh, the universities are autonomous.
Yeah.
When the NANS president said something about contracts and all that, the university system, as with most of the other things in Nigeria, are overregulated. There are a lot of things that government has no business delving into. They always come up with this idea that, oh, the reason why government must remain in there, than funding education and all that is, oh, if we just leave it to private individuals, it will be priced out of the reach of the poor. Why is it that private universities, you never hear of strikes? If you can afford it. Life is about class. If we continue to tell ourselves that, oh, we are practicing socialism or communism where government must pay for this, pay for that, we are wasting our time. There are no strikes in private universities. Why is it that politicians don't send their children to these federal government universities? They go to universities abroad where the university has a president who is like a governor. In the US, the president of a university is like the governor of a state. He runs the university. The government is not interested. The intervention of government comes in form of a scholarship, loan facilitation.
Bursary.
Yeah, they give them loan. Nigeria used to have bursary. We used to have loans. All these things have been scrapped. And then there are...
So you are saying we should go back to those things?
We should go back to that. There is no... Look, education cannot be totally free.
I think that understanding, needs to be made. But Mr. Barambu, we're winding down. We'll have just about 2 minutes to go on this segment. What would you be telling your fellow students now that ASU is back? A lot of work is going to be literally speeded up, loaded. I hope that's not going to happen, Prof. But in the event that that happens, what would you be telling your fellow students when eventually that official announcement is made that ASU is back in school?
So we're back.
Oh, you're back in school
back.
already.
Okay.
So what would you be saying to your fellow students?
Okay, God bless you. God bless you 30 times. You see, just like you said to Pro, we are not saying we want to negotiate or anything, but just to observe. So that if anything goes wrong, if we are protesting, we'll say, no, we were there, the government agree on this and that. Not to be protesting and say, no, lecturers should go back to class, government should quickly fulfill their promise. No, we just want to know where the problem is coming. Because government will tell you it's ASU, ASU will tell you it's government. But that one, by the way, to our students, that's my colleagues, let us be law-abiding and be patient enough. As you know, the lecturers are a little bit angry, not because of the strike, but because of the educational system, the way it's going. So probably if they are coming back, they will be teaching a little bit aggressively before they will be able to forgive the government, forgive us, and we'll continue from where we start. So let's be a little bit patient with them and law-abiding. Likewise, they should be a little bit patient with us. And on this note, I would like to say this thing clearly, that we are going to place our demand before the government. 8 months wasted for us. On this note, we have like 3 to 4 demands that we are going to submit to the federal government. One, they should waive out next session registration for us. Part of compensating us for wasting 8 months. Secondly, the hostels bills, it should be waived out too. Then thirdly, the stipend for Nigerian students, not to the leadership, but to the student direct. At least, let's say 20,000 for a student to at least get some things that he will go back to school with it. We are going to place this demand. I think we have like 5 or 6, but once we are through with it, we'll address media on that and we'll submit it to the federal government. Likewise, to thank the Minister of Labour, Speaker, the President, and all the ASU members and the stakeholders that are involved. There are things that a lot of people are not aware of it, but because of my position, I have a privilege of getting some information about it. And that is the same thing we have been telling the ASU leadership, that for that 8 months is virtually the same thing what the Labour Minister said. Shift grounds so that we'll come to a compromise stage and we'll go back to class. Just like you made mention, after the 8 months, we couldn't achieve a lot.
Okay.
So, but with this now, I hope and pray that both parties will fulfill their own promise. They promise to teach us well, let the government do the needful for them.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Barambu Umar. He's President, National Association of Nigerian Students. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I want to believe that there won't be any aggression in the classrooms. They are afraid.
Definitely, there will not be.
Okay.
You know, one thing you must not take away from ASU members is that we don't have any other places to send our children.
Okay.
They are all in the public universities.
I just wanted to give him that
assurance. We can't be aggressive towards our children.
I just wanted to give him that assurance.
They are not the cause of our frustration.
Kaede Isuola is a professor of, he's a research associate professor of political science at UNILAG. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. John Oloyede, legal practitioner. Well, he's called you a barrister. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
So the task ahead is just the beginning of conversations. Let's hope that more will come to make this school system better. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll take on another issue. Stay with us.
Nigeria on my mind, born in diversity, blessed beyond compare. Ooh, through these 100 years, our struggles and through all our fears. In our unity, peace, our destiny. Here we are, standing tall, we're standing tall, through adversity. We are one, 100 years of unity, Nigeria. Land of mine, Nigeria, my mind, I pledge to you my loyalty, my love, my ability. And as we celebrate ourselves, we shall be dedicated. To serve a new Nigeria, for a better land for all. Here we are, standing tall through adversities. We are one. Unity, Nigeria. Stand on the mountain, shout it in the valley. Nigeria has come a long way. On a journey to our future.
Thank you for staying with us. In a global effort to raise awareness on breast cancer, October was designated as the Pink Month. Pink Yes, the color. So the Pink Month is a month where efforts to educate those concerned about the disease, including early identification and signs and symptoms associated. It is believed that 90% of early stage breast cancers are curable, often with treatments that conserve the breast. Every year, breast cancer kills more than 500,000 women. And in resource-poor settings, a majority of women with breast cancer are diagnosed at an advanced stage of disease, resulting in low survival rates. Approximately 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime. Annual mammograms are recommended for women 40 and older, and for younger women with specific breast cancer risk factors. What those risk factors are, the early warning signs, and some of those things, let's discuss this morning with Mrs. Mujia Nimashao, who is founder and executive director of St. Cyril Cancer Treatment Foundation. Thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
First of all, why is it called Pink Month?
Well, pink is meant to be, when you have babies, they wear blue for boys and pink for girls, and I think that's where it originated from, because breast is considered a woman's organ, so to speak, okay. And so that's why the pink.
Oh, okay. Because I thought maybe that.
But men can get breast cancer too.
Please don't bring that up yet. Scary enough. So why perhaps to even by way of educating those who may be hearing this for the first time in their lives, when we talk about breast cancer, cancer itself, what exactly are we talking about?
Well, cancer is a mutation of cells, pretty much. So that's why it can go to any part of the body. As long as the living cells, it doesn't go to the nails and it doesn't go to the hair because the cells are dead. But aside from that, it can travel to any part of the body because the cells mutate. Nobody knows how that originates. And once they mutate, one of the things that they do is that they continue to grow and they take over that organ without performing any function. So that's pretty much what it is. The cells, mutant cells that continue to grow and take over an organ, then they spread to other organs. And
what would even make a cell go rogue in the first place? Because that's the way it sounds.
Well, that's the million-dollar question we're still trying to answer. It's there've been factors that mitigate it sometimes, but we don't have actual pinpoint that if this, except for smoking, cigarettes, and lung cancer have been conclusively found, and then you have the HPV for the cervical cancer. But even that, you have people who have smoked all their lives and they don't get lung cancer, and you have people who've never smoked and they can get lung cancer. So it's still a lot of research is being done, a lot of money is being spent globally, but we still haven't come up with that answer. So what we're doing is ensuring that we reduce the factor when we find out that things may cause it, fatty globules and things like that. We try and watch people's diet, exercise, and all those things that would ensure that at least you have a fighting chance. And then, of course, the screening to ensure that once it's got, it can be treated early.
Okay. So perhaps to also ask, what are the likely risk factors for cancer? Especially breast cancer?
Well, breast cancer, like I said, smoking affects, it can be a predisposing factor for breast cancer. Fatty diet, obesity, those are some of the things that can cause, that are predisposing factors. They're not exclusive, but There's some of the things that can cause breast cancer.
You mentioned exercises the other time. Sounds like lifestyle can also be a factor.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, in other words, anyone who lives a sedentary lifestyle, you go to the office, you sit down for 8 hours, and then you get up.
Yes.
That person is at risk
of breast cancer and a lot of other things.
Okay.
But it's just, and it's not to go overboard with dieting or with exercise, just in moderation and constant, not exercising for 1 hour of intense exercise and then you don't do anything again for the next week and things. Just to live in moderation and not processed foods is also something else. Eating as close to the original
state of
vegetable or the diet as possible.
Is it also a genetic illness like hypertension?
There's the risk, especially with the breast cancer. There's the BRCA1, BRCA2. I'm sure everybody's heard about Angelina Jolie and what she did when she got the breast cancer diagnosis. But so it can, and that's what the research has done over the years in trying to see the risk of family members getting it. There's the familial risk, which is that if you have a relation who has had breast cancer, there's the risk of it coming to other members of the family, but it's not a guaranteed that one would have it. But you just need to be more cautious. If you've had it in your family, then the age you start doing the mammograms and the frequency also changes.
Clearly, treatment of cancer is a very, very costly thing. So perhaps the reason for the advocacy, for the awareness, is because, look, maybe if we prevent it, we won't get to the point of having to spend humongous. But yes. So what's the level, in your opinion, of awareness of breast cancer in Nigeria?
It's still very, very low. It's very low. Unfortunately, we don't have statistics, the actual numbers. So it's always an about, but it's not even, for a population of 200 million, we haven't even covered maybe 2% of the population. And that's with the strive of constant NGOs and government. A lot still needs to be done in terms of making people not only understand what cancer is, understand their bodies, to know when it, like for the breast cancer, to do the self-breast examination and ensure that they can catch the cancer early. The fact that if they do feel something, to go to the doctor first and not to the church or the mosque and deliverance, which is fine, but to make that the first port of call. Or if they go to the church first, for the pastor or the imam to say to them, go to the hospital, then come back and we'll pray that the surgeon does the right thing, the oncologist does the right thing. So there's a lot of ground to be covered. It's being covered very slowly, but because of our size and the girth of the issue, it's still very much in its fledgling stage.
So many grounds to cover in this conversation. So let me try to. And I also wish I could ask you to do a demonstration of how people can check, self-check before you go to other places, because 500,000 women around the world is not a small figure.
No.
And so, how bad is it in Nigeria? Any ideas?
Well, it's in Nigeria and a lot of low and middle income countries, and I don't mind doing the self-exam. I mean, I have 3 children. I don't have any shame left. But in Nigeria, it's for when we that's in my our foundation did a survey. The percentage of, and it was a small survey. People educated and semi-literate, illiterate. Book-wise, maybe 5-6% had actually heard about. This was done about 5 or 6 years ago. 5 or 6% of them had actually heard about. Maybe 10% of them had heard of cancer, knew what to do, and only about 2% knew the breast examination and things like that. So it's still, like I said, it's almost nominal because the amount of people in any demographic, whether the educated who can educate themselves, maybe from, if you don't know, then it doesn't matter kind of thing. They're not aware. And then you have the educated who probably don't have the access to the information. And then you have those who are in the deep rural areas who don't have a clue, and they feel that it's somebody doing them, so to speak. And so it's very, 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 very high rate of cancer awareness illiteracy in our country.
Okay. Well, you talked about what many civil society organizations, NGOs are doing around this. What's your own foundation doing around that?
Our foundation is it's a cancer treatment foundation. Okay. I'm a radiation therapist, so I founded it because when people get diagnosed, it's one thing to get them aware, and then they get screened, and then they get diagnosed. And then what do you do with them? We don't have enough centers. We have maybe 5 centers working now for 200 million people, and WHO says we should have at least 200. I worked in the US, and in a city probably the size of Lagos, you probably find 50, 20, at least 20, maybe 50, but at least 20 cancer treatment centers where people can get treated. So that's why we decided to focus on treatment, because there are many other NGOs, working. We do awareness, we do screening as well, but also to go one step further to actually build cancer treatment centers where people can come for treatment and have more options than we have right now.
The humongous costs of treating cancer is definitely killing. Is it the same thing at your foundation?
We're self-sustaining. Okay. There's no, we can't be unrealistic about the cost of cancer, but what we try to do with our patients is try and get discounted drugs, go the extra effort, get discount from the drug manufacturers, help them to navigate the fundraising if they don't have any funds. So that's the extra thing, because we're an NGO that ensures. But yes, it's a self-sustaining center. So
now, you said you don't mind you, because perhaps one of the issues is people hear this kind of conversation that we're having now, and they're wondering, okay, you say I should do self-check, and when it's not conclusive, or when I'm not sure, I go out. How do people do self-check? What do they look for?
Well, you can actually Google it. There's a lot of pictures, video on YouTube. There's a lot of information out there. But the whole point of it is that to ensure that you have a system, you pick a date that you do it consistently every month. For women who are still having their periods, don't pick it around your period time, because our breasts they tend to be swollen around that time. So maybe maybe a week after your period, pick a time and then do the self-breast exam. It's really quite simple. All you do is put your arm up above your head. Okay. This you do in a standing position, in a lying down position, and then just start from one end and just press around from the outer edge inside into your breast. What this does is that it gets you familiar with your normal breast. So if anything is different, you will be able to notice quickly. If you notice there's something that is hard, immovable, or something that it's there 1 month and it feels as if it feels bigger the next month, or something like that, you can be able to know and go and see the doctor immediately. Okay. A lot of the times, majority of the time, it's maybe benign cyst, and as African women, we have very fibrous, dense breast, so it might be a lobule. So, but for that one time that it is breast cancer, you need to ensure that you go to the doctor.
You mentioned benign now. And there is benign lump, then there is malignant.
Yes.
Now, I also read, because I had reason to, that anyone who has had a benign lump is at risk of a malignant. Can you confirm that?
It's better if it's a benign lump. We always advocate it's better out than in, is what we. So whether if it's benign, let it be removed. It doesn't mean that, if it's removed, then it's out of you. Same thing with cancer of the cervix. If you see there's a pre-cancerous stage where you can actually treat the patient and then reduce the risk of cancer. Yes, so it's better for anybody, if they have a benign lump, for to have it removed than to keep it in and then be watching it.
Okay. I'd like you to make an appeal to women right now so that we can bring down these numbers and help them also to educate other people like them who need to know that cancer is preventable and it can be better managed so that we can reduce the fatal figures.
Okay. Well, I appeal to women and I have to appeal to men as well because I know Ayo doesn't want to accept it, but men can get breast cancer. But I appeal to everybody to please know your breast, do the self-breast exam, look it up. Everybody has a cell phone now that they can look things up on, or ask people, and just ensure that you do the self-breast exam once a month, understand your new body, and if anything is wrong, it's better to go to the doctor and find out rather than keeping it to yourself. Keeping it to yourself does not help. It doesn't help anybody, and it just reduces the risk, it increases the risk of the person getting the tumor getting bigger. So I appeal to you to please know your well breast so that you can know if anything happens that is wrong.
Well, we have to thank you very much this morning. At least that's out of the bag. So do the needful on your own self so that at least you live longer. Mrs. Moji Animashaw is founder and executive director, St. Cyril Cancer Treatment Foundation. Thank you again for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So that's out of the bag. Do it. It's a whole month of cancer awareness, breast cancer awareness to be precise, all over the world. We're back after now. We're still talking health.
Good afternoon, sir. Please, I need a room to rent in your house.
Okay, where do you work?
I'm the nurse.
That means you won't owe me rent. Congratulations, young lady. You have yourself a house.
Well, thank you so much, sir. So, how much is the rent?
90,000 naira. Oh, but wait, where are you from?
I am from Akamata.
Akamata what? Akamata in my house? If you know how you got into my house, please get out right away. My spirit and that of Akamata people don't have anything to do together.
Sir, what have I done?
Your people from Akamata are known for bad things. That is what they represent, and you can't live in my house. Just get out right away.
What's going on?
Leave my house, young lady. Yes, our differences extend to our languages, culture, food, and even belief. But we are bound together by the cord of love. With one heart, with one voice, we will make Nigeria a hub of greatness, a place where the people live as one.
This message is brought to you from the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from the UK government.
Well, as you can see, we're talking about disease surveillance and control, and of course, who better to address that with us this morning than the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which is Nigeria's public health institute with a mandate to detect, prevent, and respond to diseases of public health importance. Dr. Ifedaya Adetifa is Director General, Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Thank you for joining us this morning, Doc. Well, perhaps it's okay for me to begin by saying, hey, it's been about a year or thereabout for you now in the saddle. How's it been?
It's been interesting. Thank you for having me to start with. It's been almost a year of, whirlwind challenges, and it has been interesting so far. Which is why I'm still here.
Well, thank you again for being here and for what you do. Perhaps it's also good to ask you what the challenges of the job are for you. Literally managing the surveillance and disease surveillance and control for 200 million plus people. It's no mean job.
Yes, indeed, it is no mean feat to have to serve 200 million people across 36 states and the federal capital, and doing that through the platform provided by what is a relatively young agency, which over time has managed to punch well above its weight despite the challenges in front of it. But we continue to push to scale up what we need to do to really ensure that we have impact and have a presence that is felt by all of the citizens that we serve. The challenges there, of course, include every activity that we need to do needs resources. So financial resources are important, but even when you have financial resources, you do need the human capital. You need skilled and highly motivated workforce, and you need not just a few of them, but enough of them to achieve coverage and to achieve scale. The other challenge, perhaps, is people do not often relate our health security to our healthcare system, but the healthcare system as a whole, through very well functioning primary health care and universal health coverage, is actually the foundation for health security, because health security certainly depends on having a resilient health system. And we know that there's been quite a bit of neglect in that area for decades, and it will take more than the efforts of one government in even 2 terms of office to close that gap. But we are seeing the needle moving a bit in that aspect with revitalization efforts for primary health care, with the changes into the national insurance function and package, and we hope that that will continue to make sure that citizens have unlimited access to care and therefore are able to contribute to surveillance. It makes it easier to detect signals of outbreaks, and hopefully access to primary health care also is quite closely linked to the uptake of vaccination, and the uptake of vaccination with high coverage then also will mean that we will have less of a challenge with vaccine-preventable diseases.
Well, Dr. Aditifa, a natural question that comes to mind now when you talk about personnel, capacity, one question that comes to mind is that of partnership with the states. I'd like you to speak to that partnership and other critical partners within the Nigerian system that you have to work with, that you have had to work with, that you are having to work with. You are the third DG of the NCDC over time, and you perhaps have been in the system for long enough to know how well or not those partnerships, particularly with partnership with the states, has helped to deal with some of these issues. Because there are those who would wonder, look, we shouldn't be having issues with Lassa fever. We shouldn't be having issues with some diseases because we know it's going to happen in a year. Just recently, the flooding took over a number of states in the country, and we hear that more of it is going to come. And naturally, diseases will follow when the floods abate. So what kind of partnership is there with the states? Is there a system established, or do you still have pushbacks with some agencies or individuals in some agencies at the states level?
Well, it's a very important question, and I think it's important that I highlight that for all of the success that the NCDC that's been attributed to the NCDC, none of this would have been possible without our close collaboration with our state partners. We are based in Abuja. Yes, we can deploy when it's required to provide support in states, but that's essentially what it is, to provide support. We do not have a standing army that can be deployed across 36 states and the federal capital at the same time. Okay, so we depend on the state ministries of health. We depend on the state departments of public health. We depend on the state epidemiologists, and of course the disease surveillance and notification officers and the lab focal persons and all of the like. So we are in constant communication with all of these people that I've mentioned to varying extents. We certainly have regular interactions with our state epidemiologists to discuss matters that are within the remit of the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and to understand what challenges they may have in, of course, implementing or carrying out their statutory function. So I don't have any complaints as far as cooperation or collaborating with the states. But I think it's important to also highlight that just as there are challenges in the at national level, there are also challenges on the state level. The states vary in terms of the manpower that is available, in terms of the size of the state epidemiologist unit, in terms of the number of expert personnel that are there. There's frequent attrition, as everybody knows, frequent transfers in and transfers out. So that also is a challenge for sort of departmental or institutional memory, which is one reason why, for example, whether it's state-led or federal government-led, there's often a need for repeat and repeat training, because sometimes some of the people that you've trained and built their capacity to do particular functions then are no longer in that position. And of course, there's the challenge of financial resources. Until recently, there was no state that had a budget line for emergency response and even emergency preparedness. And as a result of lessons learned from COVID and the advocacy by partner organizations, civil society organizations, at least 2 states have budget lines for emergency response. So states have, this is just to discuss some of the challenges that are common to all of the states along with the national government. And of course, then there will be state-specific challenges that all of these teams have.
Dr. Aditifa, I find it very interesting what you just said now about states not having budget lines for emergencies. Could you please expatiate on that, and how crucial is it?
Well, it is very important. I've had to contend with a number of public health challenges, maybe in the last decade. But I'm sure you will agree with me that perhaps it's not until COVID in particular that the term national health security or global health security became a bit better known or well known. Obviously, the experts or the practitioners in the field would have been aware, but this was not the sort of consciousness of most of the ordinary people and our political leaders in preceding years. So with the advent of COVID, that's now on everybody's lips, and everybody recognizes that countries need to be responsible for their own destiny, so to say, as far as their health security is concerned, even while that contributes to global health security. So if you think about it, in recognition of this and some of the challenges we've had in previous years, having to respond to Ebola, having to respond to monkeypox reemergence, having to respond to those outbreaks of meningitis and the like, perhaps this were a stimuli that also led the government to finally sign into law the acts that established the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention in 2018, and then which basically was an effort to bring better coordination, more efficiency, and leadership to things that relate to national health security and the threat of communicable diseases to public health. So if, that is the journey for the national government, which means, again, to an extent, despite the best efforts of state ministries of health and their respective departments of public health and the state epidemiologist teams, they are in some ways slightly behind in that journey. And just like it's, even at national level, we had not had an emergency response fund or money kept aside for emergency function until recently. This is the same situation that is in states. But as I said, in realization of the need to have preparedness and response for threats within state borders and, of course, across state borders, and also in recognition that we would only be as strong as our weakest link in the country, we are quite keen to help our state partners to understand also their own responsibilities to put in place things to assure health security, even whilst contributing to our national health security. And we have a lot of partners operating in that space, especially among advocacy groups and all of that. And it's actually pleasing to see that as a result of their activities, as a result of also government realization, national health security budgets and releases have increased. We've got a national action plan for health security that is also funded to an extent and is being implemented. And we are working with our states, our partners, to also ensure that they do that, of course, a scaled-down version of that in their respective domains, so that we
Dr.
all achieve. Yes.
Just a second. So, so far, as you said, and perhaps many of them are working towards including emergency budget lines in the budgets, emergency, funding for emergencies in their budgets going forward. But for now, you said only 2 states have budget lines for emergency. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the threats of known diseases and unknown diseases are high. We understand that Ebola is in Uganda's capital city, and we have dealt with Ebola before. We were able to fence it off, even though at the risk of the lives of some of our personnel in this country. We also know, and you are definitely aware, that COVID figures are rising in Europe, the UK perhaps to be precise, and a number of other countries might be battling things that hopefully will not, but is highly likely will come because we are such an open economy and all of that. So if states do not have that, are they even aware of the risks? Because we have international airports in Lagos and in Abuja, and they can go anywhere to any part of the country from there. So how do we get ahead of those emerging, God forbid, but almost certain onslaughts of these diseases if we do not have these budget lines?
Well, it's desirable to have the budget lines and to have the releases, which shows some proactive thinking. But we also need to recognize that governments have perhaps not done too badly in mobilizing resources when they are required for emergency response. We just want to move a step away from that to make sure that whatever additional lag time that is there when you have to wait for resources to be mobilized before you respond to conditions is completely removed as the next step in our growth. But in terms of awareness, with us working with state partners and with port health authorities, for example, we do work out plans for responding to these threats, especially those that may come in through our international airports, as we are currently doing as part of our alertness or the raised alert level for Ebola.
Well, that's Ebola there. We have dealt with that before. Any lessons from the past that might still be relevant?
Oh, certainly the lessons are there, and there's institutional memory, and believe it or not, there are still quite a number of people who were part of the response there that are still in the system. And of course, going from Ebola, I've even had to contend with other outbreaks and even provide support to other countries in the continent. So in terms of the human capacity to respond to Ebola, that is there. And we are in a better place, perhaps, than we were when Ebola first arrived. So it's a condition we have seen. It's a condition to which we have some familiarity, even if it's not as frequently occurring here in Nigeria as it occurs in East Africa and Central Africa. Okay. But the human capacity is certainly there.
Okay. How about COVID? We understand there is a 14% jump in the UK, and knowing the relationship between Nigeria and the UK is certainly something that could be giving you some concern, isn't it?
Yes, so we remind citizens that the COVID pandemic is still there and has not gone away, despite our efforts to return back to what the normal life or whatever the new normal is. At this time, we are aware that the COVID situation across the world is as varied as there are many countries in the world. The increases in Europe and in many countries in the Northern Hemisphere will definitely happen as they go into winter. And winter is a period where you have increases in respiratory pathogens. So whether respiratory diseases, so whether historically what they dealt with was flu. So the flu season is approaching. All other respiratory diseases like COVID will probably also increase. But I think what we need to keep in mind is that one of the successes of public health in terms of COVID, as a result of vaccination, as a result of natural immunity, is that we now seem to have achieved a full disconnect between number of cases, numbers of hospitalized patients and deaths. And that's an important thing to highlight. Of course,
this is a live Channels television event.
This is Channels Television. We now go live to Kaduna State for the closing ceremony of the CADInvest 7.0. For those who wish to continue to watch sunrise, you can do so on our terrestrial platform, which shows across Lagos, or go to Stream 2 on our YouTube page. Please stay with us.
Mira Meta, Managing Director, Tomato Juice. All our very distinguished personalities present, our virtual audience, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, members of the press. Welcome to CADInvest 7.0.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to CADInvest 7.0, the summit. It is my pleasure to welcome you. My name is Hannah Bello. I'll be co-hosting with the beautiful Mujibade.
Thank you very much, Hannah. It's such an honor to be here to be the co-compare at the CADInvest 7.0. Just like my beautiful co-host said, my name is Mujibade. However, as soon as I arrived Kaduna, I got a new name. You can address me as Halima. Thank you very much. Thank you.
CADInvest is an annual economic and investment summit organized by the Kaduna State government to showcase strategic investment opportunities in the state, as well as consolidate its existing investment gains to maximize the state's economic potential. Since its launch in 2016, the summit has assisted in drawing investments worth over $4 billion into the state in sectors such as agri and food processing, mining, light manufacturing, lots of other services, and so many others.
Now, just like my co-host said, the inaugural summit held in 2016 with the theme, Kaduna is open for business. And ever since then, Kaduna has been open for business. The summit has, however, continued to unfold unfailingly since then, with each theme changing every year to reflect the progress that has been recorded. In 2017, the theme was Making Kaduna the Investment Destination of Choice. At this point, may I respectfully recognize and welcome the 14th Emir of Kano, Khalifa Muhammadu Sanusi II. Thank you for joining us at CADInvest 7.0. It's an honor to have you here. Can we give him a round of applause as we welcome him officially to CADInvest 7.0? Thank you. You're welcome, Your Excellency. Once again, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us today. I was highlighting the past summits and their themes. In 2016, like I stated earlier, we said Kaduna was open for business, and Kaduna has truly been open for business since then. Again, the summit has continued to evolve over the years, with each theme changing every year to reflect the progress that has been recorded. In 2017, the theme was Making Kaduna the Investment Destination of Choice. In 2018, CADInvest had a theme, Partnership for Development. Again, that is because Kaduna understands the importance of collaboration and partnerships. In 2019, we had a theme, Expanding Investment Frontiers. And in 2020, the summit was themed Infrastructure, Industrialization, and Innovation. In 2021, the summit was themed Towards a Knowledge-Based Economy. And that has led us to this year's theme, Building a Resilient Economy. What a time to be alive.
Over the last 7 years of this summit, a number of highly esteemed companies have established operations in Kaduna State, some of which are Tomato Jos, Dangote Peugeot Automobile Assembly Plant, Olam, African Natural Resource Mines and Limited, Flour Mills, and so many others. This just reiterates the significance and importance of this summit.
Further than reiterating the importance of the summit, it also shows that Kaduna is truly open for business. And this is not just a talk shop. It's a workshop and a summit where we take pragmatic steps to actually start to implement activities and resolutions from the summit. This year, the summit is totally different. It is a 3-day summit as opposed to the usual 2 days. And it's being held here physically and interestingly in the metaverse, with the aim of exploring the potentials and value add of the metaverse. Now, I must emphasize that Kaduna State is a trailblazer state. I thought we were going to applaud at this point. And I'll tell you why I say so. Because Kaduna State is the first subnational in Nigerian history to host its economic and investment summit on the metaverse, not just on Zoom like we are accustomed to. Now, let me explain how the metaverse works. If you go to cadinvest.live, scroll down or check the menu bar, you'll see metaverse. Once you click on it, follow the prompt, and you get an immersive experience of the summit. You can network with other delegates. You can participate actively as though you were here. Not to worry, for those of us in the room, if you would like to also experience the metaverse, there is a hub right at the back of the auditorium where you can experience everything happening in the virtual reality, to be a part of technology advancement. Again, it gives me great pleasure to be here in Kaduna State to witness this momentous occasion and this historic event. Can we please celebrate Kaduna State for being a trailblazer? Thank you. Indeed, we are embracing technology because technology is the future, and it's just exciting to witness what we have done so far over the past couple of years with the summit here in Kaduna. Again, my name is Mojibari, but you can call me Halima. Welcome to Cadinvest 7.0, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. We'll take our welcome remarks for the summit because, as compares, we can only welcome you in our capacity. However, I would invite a very delectable woman, a woman who continues to blaze the trail, a woman who continues to break the bias. I mean, in line with the International Women's Day theme for the year, it says breaking the bias. This woman wears several hats, wears them very graciously, and continues to lead excellently and powerfully. When I say she breaks the bias, she is the very first female deputy governor of Kaduna State. For the welcome remarks at Cadinvest 7.0, let's make welcome the outstanding leader herself, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State and Chairman Kadipa Board, Dr. Hadiza Sabuwa Balarabe, with a resounding applause. Thank you.
Okay. His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Commander of the Armed Forces, President Muhammadu Buhari, who is ably represented by Ambassador Mariam Waliaji Katagum, Minister of State, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Your Excellency Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the APC presidential candidate and members of his entourage. I'm reliably informed that they're on their way and will soon be here with us. Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir Ahmad El-Rufai, and his amiable wife, Ajia Aisha Garba El-Rufai. Your Excellency, I want to use this opportunity to appreciate you for the clarity you provide for task, for being inspirational, and for providing Team Kaduna excellent motivation to achieve. Thank you very much. All other excellencies who are here with us, the Speaker, Kaduna State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Yusuf Ibrahim Zailani, distinguished Senator Uba Sani, the Senator representing Zone 2 and the APC gubernatorial candidate, Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Alhaji Mahmoud Abakar, and other ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria who are here, all members of the National Assembly and members of the Kaduna State House of Assembly who are here with us, members of the Kaduna State Executive Council and other senior government officials, members of the Diplomatic Corps, captains of industries, I must make special mention of Alhaji Aliko Dangote, who we are expecting any moment from now. Our development partners, His Highness the 14th Emir of Kano, Muhammad Sanusi II, and Vice Chairman of the Kadipa Board, all traditional rulers here, our revered religious leaders, our investors, both new and old, members of the press, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with gratitude to Allah Almighty and a sense of responsibility that I stand here to welcome you to the 7th edition of the Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit, CAD Invest 7.0. The Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit, which is an annual event, showcases the business opportunities available in Kaduna State and makes for consolidation on the gains of some of the ongoing reforms being undertaken by the Malam El-Rufai-led administration. This is a hybrid summit to enable us to reach global investors who are unable to attend physically. This year, we are hoping to give our virtual audience a much more interesting experience by introducing the Metaverse platform, a much more advanced digital platform that gives a sense of physical presence. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our reforms have always been geared towards attracting investments, creating employment, and enhancing the revenue profile of the state. We're also interested in building young, homegrown entrepreneurs who will be seeds for future large corporations that Nigeria needs. Our dream has always been and remains to have a state that is known around the globe as a shining light for investors and a preferred investment destination for all. A safe haven where people with brilliant ideas can come in and feel free to express themselves while tapping into the opportunities provided to grow and provide most exciting businesses. The theme for this year's summit, CAD Invest 7.0, is building a resilient economy. We feel this is very apt. Stepping into the future of the economy demands that the right policies and structures are in place for both large and small businesses to thrive. That is why at the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency, we prioritize getting the state to the top as the best subnational for investment, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. Well, I'm just being modest, but we want to see the globe. I can confidently, clearly, and without reservation say that Kaduna is indeed getting there. This is because, in spite of the global economic challenges we have continued to witness significant transformations in the economic climate of the state that is unrivaled. Our investment promotion initiatives have been and continue to yield results. I'm again delighted to announce that since the inaugural Economic and Investment Summit, CAD Invest 1.0 in 2017, we have boosted the investment base of Kaduna State to about $4.3 billion. These economic summits have been instrumental to opening up business opportunities in the state and providing a veritable platform for government to receive feedback from investors, thus supporting us to continue to improve on our business processes. This year's summit commenced on the 13th of October with a business expo at the Centenary Park. Industrialists and other providers of various services showcased their products, while robust discussions were had around investment opportunities in the state. There were panel discussions on topical issues that we believe will further enhance economic growth. These issues were taken head-on by experienced and knowledgeable individuals and included maximizing investments for development in agribusiness, repositioning livestock subsector for sustainable development, opportunities in infrastructure sector for businesses, and ease of doing business reforms, sustaining Kaduna's #1 position. The discussions provided new information and ideas for investors and our personnel alike on what needs to be done to push the Kaduna business environment to better and greater heights. I'm happy to report that these discussions had individuals from beyond Africa who were in the comfort of their business offices participating. We are determined to continue to lead in the areas of comparative advantage that we presently enjoy. It is therefore our solemn vow that we will continue to take steps that keep us ahead. We are therefore the first subnational in Nigeria's history to host its Economic and Investment Summit on Metaverse. The government of Kaduna greatly appreciates the power of the internet in providing links in the current business world. In this sense, we are the first government to fully waive the right-of-way charges for internet providers. This has immensely contributed towards paving the way for Kaduna State to be the first northern Nigerian state to achieve 100% broadband coverage. We established a collaboration with partners to provide connectivity across the 23 local governments of the state. This year's CAD Invest also had a number of projects commissioned by His Excellency, and these projects cut across various sectors of the economy. We are taking steps to strengthen our position as the leading state in easing doing business in Nigeria and to build a solid knowledge-based and data-driven economy. Today, all our decisions are made based on informed positions. Ladies and gentlemen, we are determined to position our private sector to lead development through bringing in opportunities for value creation that ordinarily are not available to government. Government alone cannot drive development. Our partnership with the private sector is therefore intended to drive quality change and bring development to our doorpost. Our esteemed business partners, I'm happy that our initiatives are yielding results. KADIPA and the state government will continue to do its very best to sustain and maintain Kaduna State as the most business-friendly environment in Nigeria. I thank you all for being part of CAD Invest 7.0 and welcome you to the trendiest business event in Nigeria. God bless Kaduna State. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Again, I say welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hadiza Sabuwa Balarabe, Deputy Governor of Kaduna State. Can we please applaud her one more time for that very warm welcome? Thank you. Just borrowing your words, Doctor, welcome to the trendiest investment summit in the history of Nigeria. Welcome to this momentous occasion. And again, welcome to this historic event happening right here at the Center of Learning. At this point, Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome a great man, a paragon of excellence, a man at the forefront of championing the most innovative ideas right here in Nigeria. I'm talking about a visionary leader. Let's make welcome with a standing ovation to give us a presentation on recap of CAD Invest 1.0 to 6.0 and officially unveil CAD Invest 7.0. His Excellency, our Governor, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai.
Thank you. Please be seated. Your Excellency, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, our leader, President Muhammad Buhari, ably represented by the Honorable Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment, Ambassador Mariam Yelwaji, my colleague, the Deputy Governor, didn't pronounce it correctly. It's a Fulani name and difficult to pronounce. The Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, His Royal Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II, honorable ministers, honorable members and distinguished members of the National Assembly, Your Royal Highnesses, my dear and beautiful wife, Aisha Ummi El-Rufai, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to keep the protocol to save time. I also recognize in absentia His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is on his way here to attend the summit, and the richest black man in Africa, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, who has also confirmed he's on his way here any moment from now. Good morning and welcome to the 7th edition of the Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit. I will take a few minutes to quickly go through a recap of the last 6 summits and what we hope to do in this summit. Okay. So I hope in the next few minutes to present the KIDInvest story, what we have done in the last 7 years, as well as major achievements in 2022, and then unveil this edition of the summit and lay out what our future plans are. I will end up by, again, explaining why anyone should invest in Kaduna and summarize some of the investment opportunities in our portfolio so far. Now, when we started the idea of this summit, the first KIDInvest in 2016, it was essentially to send a message to domestic and foreign investors that Kaduna is now under a new government that wants to be an enabler of business, that wants to be friendly to business, that want to attract investments to create jobs for our population. The previous government of 16 years has been hostile to business, has not put in place the enabling environment for businesses to thrive, and many businesses have shut down in Kaduna between 1999 and 2015. We had to change that narrative, so our first KIDInvest was essentially to lay that foundation. And when we did the first edition, we were not even sure we would have a second, third, up to a 7th edition. But we wanted to outline to potential investors what our plans were and to persuade them that this is the time to come back to Kaduna and invest. Because in a state with a very low median age of the population, our median age in Kaduna is about 17. A large number of our people are young and they need jobs. We have to invite the private sector to invest because that's the only way and the fastest way to create jobs. So this was the first edition of KIDInvest. And this is what we have been on for the last 7 years. As the Deputy Governor has explained, I think we've achieved some degree of success in that. So let me continue the story from there. From KIDInvest 1, the first KIDInvest, we got about 25 businesses attracted, both local and foreign. And we created KADIPA, the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency, which is a one-stop shop to interface with potential investors, as well as ensure that current investors are being taken care of as well. KADIPA was established with the assistance of the British government, UK DFID, And it has become, by every measure, I would say, the most successful subnational investment promotion agency. CADIPA has been lucky to have first-class leadership right from the beginning. The first chairman of CADIPA was the late Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Architect Barnabas Yusuf Bala, may so rest in peace. And the vice chairman was John Comantaros, the chairman of Flour Mills. And I want to thank these two for their service in building CADIPA. I'm proud today to say that our vice chairman is His Royal Highness, the 14th Emir of Kano, Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi, and one of the brightest, most accomplished economists Nigeria has ever produced as the vice chairman. And we have seen the value and the benefits of their leadership. Your Highness, I again thank you for your leadership and your contribution to the development of Kaduna State and Nigeria at large. May the Almighty God continue to protect you, elevate you, and destroy your enemies. CAD Invest 2.0 continue to build on what CAD Invest, the first CAD Invest did. In CAD Invest 2.0, we presented our state development plan, our 5-year plan, and we launched sector implementation plans and our ease of doing business charter. When we came into office, Kaduna was ranked number 24 out of 37 subnationals in Nigeria in the ease of doing business. It just showed how much effort the PDP government of 16 years put in to destroy Kaduna's attractiveness to business. We are number 24 out of 37. We are determined to change that position, so we launched our ease of doing business charter in 2016. We also launched our first BRT system and attracted a number of foreign direct investments. It was in 2016 that the Olam Poultry and Feed Mill, a $150 million investment, came into Kaduna, and mass housing and so on and so forth. We also established the first ICT hub in northern Nigeria, in Kaduna State, then, with the assistance of Zenith Bank. And we signed a 3-year MOU with United States Agency for International Development to provide technical assistance to drive economic investment in the state. We also launched our Eyes and Ears program to help us monitor projects across the state. The third edition of CAD Invest was significant also in many ways, because for businesses to thrive, infrastructure is needed. So we launched our infrastructure master plan from 2018 to 2050, which determined what the infrastructure needs of the state would be from that time up to 2050, when the population of Kaduna is expected to double to about 20 million. So we had to think ahead and think of and determine what are the infrastructure needs, both for businesses as well as citizens that live in the state, and we launched that infrastructure master plan. In that CAD Invest, 14 or so businesses solidified their investments in Kaduna. When we did the count at that time, 79% of the investments we're attracting were foreign, and only 21 were domestic, which means we had to do more work in trying to get domestic investors, because the domestic investors appear to still be scared by what PDP has done in the last 16 years, so we had to work harder. But we also realized that for investments to thrive, you need to invest more in human capital. And it was in that year that a new flagship of investment of Dangote Pujo Automobile Plant was realized, with Kaduna State and Kebbi State as minority investors, and Dangote Industries majority, with Pujo of France as investor and technical partner. That plant has already been completed and has started producing vehicles in Kaduna State. The fourth edition of CAD Invest saw the launch and the operationalization of our industrial master plan. So first we had a state development plan, Then we had an infrastructure plan, and now we had to present for our state an industrialization plan. And we aligned the industrialization plan with the infrastructure plan as well as our state development plan. This was the year that we launched Kaduna into Industry 4.0 and began to look at knowledge-driven economy and the opportunities being presented by information technology. The fifth edition was the edition that took place, I think, in the year of COVID. It was difficult. We were a little lost as to what to do, but we're determined that Card Invest must continue, even with the COVID-19 pandemic. So it was the first Card Invest that we held virtually. It was the first time that we moved the date, the time for Card Invest to September because of COVID. If you remember, the whole world locked down around June. So we couldn't do it in April. So we did it, we launched it in September. It was virtual, but we still went ahead and had a Card Invest in the year 2020. President Buhari was the special guest of honor virtually. And that was the year we launched our public-private partnership policy and manual. In spite of COVID, between Card Invest 5.0 and 6.0, we grew our investment portfolio by over 500 million in spite of COVID, as I said. The theme for that year was infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation, because by then we have realized we have to bring the three together. And we began working on this, and the results are what we began to show in Card Invest 6.0. That year, we launched our second state development plan, 2021 to 2025, that laid out our blueprint for developing the state up to 2025. It was also the first year we began to look at potential of the state in tourism. We know that because of the insecurity that pervades the state and the country, it may not happen immediately, but in Kaduna we try to think ahead and anticipate opportunities and prepare for the time, because insecurity is not going to be with us forever. It will go one day, but when it does, what's the plan? So we have a tourism plan and a catalog, and we also launched the Skills for Prosperity program, which is designed to provide skills to those that are educated and those that are not, and equip our young people with high-quality skills needed by our industries. In Card Invest 6.0, we also announced the increase of our investment portfolio to about $2.8 billion. So before we launch Card Invest 7.0, let us just recap some of the achievements this year, 2022. Kaduna State Government collected 52.8 billion in internally generated revenue in 2021, plus from about 12 billion when we came into office. We also commissioned the remodeled Murtala Mohammed Square. Those of you that visited here the last time, about 2 years ago, will see a massive change in this environment. We commissioned some road projects as part of our urban renewal program. President Muhammad Buhari was here in January and he commissioned many projects and sort of complained that he couldn't find his way back to his house. It was a good complaint. We also commissioned the 136-bed infectious diseases hospital. We built this during COVID, not only to take care of the needs then, but also to prepare for the next pandemic. Because believe me or not, there will be another pandemic. We don't know the nature of it, but the COVID-19 pandemic showed the weaknesses in our public health system, and we have to be prepared. We hope there will not be a pandemic, but in this life, government should hope for the best, but plan for the worst. So we are ready for the next pandemic by the grace of God. We also commissioned one of our mega primary schools in Rigasa. This was a school that had 23,000 students sharing 14 classrooms. We had to break that school into 4 schools, rebuilt them, and made them state-of-the-art in every way. We commissioned that. And various roads in the federal capital, in Kaduna Capital Territory, were also commissioned in early 2022. Industries were also commissioned, Sabongari Market, Zaria Pharmaceuticals, so many projects were commissioned. You've gone ahead of me. Or have you? Okay. Barbados fertilizer plant, many other projects were committed. I think we can jump this. You can see from the slides. That is important. We also disbursed low-interest loans to women. We have the Kaduna State Women Empowerment Fund, where we disburse 200 million every year to women engaged in small businesses, because we believe in empowering women. When women are empowered, when women are rich, their children go to school, their children are healthy, they look after the family. When men are rich, they tend to marry more wives, especially men from Zaria. I am from Zaria. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. In 2022, we also launched something very innovative, the distribution of our drugs and medical equipment using drones. Zipline is an American, California-based company that began this innovation of distributing medical commodities using drones. Their first operational base was in Ghana, and they came to Nigeria and chose to pilot in Kaduna State. I'm happy to say that this is already going on. We no longer require vehicles to take our medicines to the farthest parts of the state, and the first facility in Pambegua was launched, and they have been operating, and they hope to expand to 2 other locations in the state. And I'm happy that several state governments have already approached them to do the same in their states. We're building a 300-bed specialist hospital, and we've brought in a medical group from Dubai to manage it, because we believe that after investing billions of naira in such a hospital that will have the most advanced nuclear medicine and cancer treatment center in Nigeria, it is best to have it managed by the private sector. We signed that agreement, and we are just tidying up the completion of the hospital. We've also signed an agreement with Elekta of Sweden to supply and install equipment for nuclear medicine that, as I said, will be the most advanced in Nigeria. Working with NSIA, there is a second cancer center that will be built by Baradiko Teaching Hospital, because our objective is to make Kaduna the destination for medical tourism, particularly for patients of cancer in Nigeria. We'll have more cancer treatment capability in Kaduna than anywhere in Nigeria, by the grace of God, in the next 2 years. We also held the 4th edition of Kaba Fest after some hiatus due to COVID. We couldn't do the Kaduna Books and Arts Festival because of COVID, but we resumed this year. Next slide. And finally, our Kaduna Residents Identity Management Agency has so far registered over 5 million of the estimated 10 million residents of Kaduna State. We have data about these residents, we know everything about them, and the whole idea is for us to get every Kaduna resident registered as a precondition for enjoying social services. Education in Kaduna State for the first 12 years is free. So we don't want people flooding from other states because education is free and of good quality in the states, we want only those that are resident here to enjoy this. My brother, His Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II is here, so I will not say we are afraid that Kano people will come here because they like freebies. I won't say it. But our Kaduna resident Identity Management Agency is linked to NIMSI. So 5.3 million Kaduna residents already have their NIN, which is the highest percentage by population of any state in Nigeria. And I want to congratulate Kadrima for an excellent job. We'll now unveil the 7th edition of Kaduna Economic and Investment Forum, which is themed Building a Resilient Economy. The world has gone through a lot in the last 2 years. The COVID-19 pandemic came with challenges, and now, with the pandemic receding, the war in Ukraine has turned the world upside down. Energy and food prices are rising. Global supply chains disrupted during COVID have been made worse by this war. And the view of most experts is that things are likely to get worse before they get better. This is why we believe that we should begin to think of how to build a resilient economy that will survive shocks that are expected and unexpected in the next couple of years. So this is the theme of CAD Invest 7.0. It is imperative that not only the national governments, but even subnationals should begin to think on what policies, programs, and projects they should implement to mitigate the effects of these expected and some unexpected shocks. In that regard, in this edition of Kaduna Economic and Investment Forum, we will launch further ease of doing business initiatives. Kaduna became #1 in 2018 from number 24 in 2014, but we want to remain #1, not only in Nigeria, but we want to be #1 in Africa, in the world, if need be, because that's the only way we can be the first choice of investors. So in this CAD Invest, we hope to sign a Kaduna Mutual Accountability Framework and a new and enhanced ease of doing business charter with our development partners. We are also going to announce the declaration of the Green Economic Zone as the first special economic zone and a free trade zone in our state, and I think one of the first in Nigeria. I want to express our gratitude to the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment and NEBSA for all that they did to make sure that this declaration of the Green Economic Zone as a special economic zone is done in the shortest possible time. Thirdly, we will launch the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone project, which is an initiative of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and I'm happy that the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, our brother, Dr. Mohammed Abubakar, is here, who is the champion of this project, and Kaduna is one of the beneficiaries. We hope today to sign the subsidiary loan agreement with the Federal Ministry of Finance. So these are the three major issues that we'll present to you today. In addition, there will be two plenaries, one on delivering infrastructure for a knowledge-based economy, and another on the agricultural transformation for sustainable and resilient food systems in Kaduna State. During the course of the day, we'll have a special guest of honor, President Muhammad Buhari, who is being represented by the Honorable Minister of State Industry, Trade and Investment, to make a presentation. our gubernatorial candidate, and by the grace of God, the next governor of Kaduna State, Senator Obasani, will also make a presentation to make the point that when elected by the grace of God, these policy directions will continue. We want to assure investors that the only thing that will change in Kaduna State is the face of the governor, perhaps the disappearance of some of the old people in the government, and more aggressive policy formulation and direction. Senator Obasani will assure you that he's going to continue our good policies, reverse the bad ones, because not all our policies are necessarily good. We are human, we make mistakes. But as far as investment promotion is concerned, he is going to assure you that this administration is on the right track, and he's just going to sustain that and do more. We want to assure our investors that there is nothing to worry about. Obasani, like me, is a Malam, and he will continue in the direction of Malams. We also are expecting the arrival anytime of our presidential candidate and his running mate. I'm referring here to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, by God's grace, the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to also assure you that the federal government will continue to support Kaduna State. Our state has enjoyed unprecedented support from Buhari's administration because Buhari lives here and because of the close personal relationships some of us enjoy with him. Our investors need to understand that it will continue and may be even better under Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And he will give you that assurance himself when he arrives. We have other keynote speakers. Abubakar Suleiman, the MD/CEO of a Stalin Bank, and one of our enduring partners in everything we do in Kaduna State. Stalin Bank has been there to support us, and we are very grateful. So he'll speak to you as one of the keynote speakers. And of course, the highlight of the day will be the remarks of His Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II, who is the Vice Chairman of the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency. As you know, His Highness is one of our most accomplished public servants. As I said, one of our best economists, one of our best bankers, one of our best emirs, one of our best of everything. And he will speak to you today, and I'm happy he will be speaking last after me because, as I always tell you, His Highness makes me appear very uncontroversial. So, but expect from His Highness the truth, the whole truth, but nothing but the truth, even if you don't like it. Tonight, we hope to host you to a gala night. For those of you that will be able to make it, please come, relax, and enjoy the hospitality of Kaduna. Let me talk about what you've done in the last 2 days very quickly, then I'll take my seat. In the last 2 days, yesterday we spent the whole day commissioning projects. Some of the projects we commissioned include the largest rice processing mill in Kaduna State, Falgate Foods, the Afex Grain Aggregation and Processing Center in Kudan Local Government, the Cast Layer Computerized Vehicle Inspection Center, Kaduna Galaxy Mall, Muwafaq Estate, Nuru Siraj Estate, Reno Estate, Amsco Neighborhood Center. What is unique about all this, that they are all either private investments or public-private partnerships. And we commissioned all of them yesterday. We also held a business expo on Thursday, which kickstarted Card Invest with 4 concurrent sector expos: agriculture, technology, infrastructure, and solid minerals and others, at the Centenary Park, another location here in Kaduna. In those expos, we launched the Livestock Regulatory Authority regulations, because Kaduna was the center of livestock farming in Nigeria. But banditry decimated that, and we want to bring it back now that there is an aggressive operation against the bandits. We also launched our Ginger Investment Policy and Strategic Framework with the support of GIZ of Germany. Kaduna is the largest producer of ginger in Nigeria. We produce 85% of Nigeria's ginger. And we want to leverage and add value to this, and this is incorporated in our investment policy and strategic framework. We also signed an agreement with Kaduna Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture to better utilize the trade fair complex throughout the year. Because the trade fair complex is a huge investment that is used only 2-3 days in a year during the trade fair. We have now come up with a way to use it all through the year by converting the trade fair complex into a film village. We know there is Nollywood, Kannywood. We want to have Kadawood, and the trade fair complex will be used for that purpose to further promote the creative arts sector. So where do we aspire to be? What are our future plans? You know, in 2015, when we came into office, we said we wanted to make Kaduna great again. Kaduna used to be great, but years of bad governance have nearly destroyed our state. So we felt that the main job before us was to make Kaduna great again. Donald Trump stole this from us and changed Kaduna to America, but we are not going to ask him to pay us for copyright fees. But then we said we wanted a state where there are abundant economic opportunities and prosperity, social inclusion, peace and security, good governance, and improved quality of life of the citizenry. We've tried to do that in the last 7 years. We have succeeded in some areas, we haven't succeeded in some, and we hope that Senator Obasani's government will continue in that direction. But these are the challenges. Look at how Kaduna is. This is the demographic, next slide. This is the demographic picture of Kaduna State. People over 65 in Kaduna are just about 300,000. It's a very young state. Very, very young state. About 10 million people, third largest in terms of population after Kano and Lagos. And 40% of the population is below the age of 15. And we have an increasing female population. So those that are looking for wives in other states where there aren't, please come to Kaduna. We have enough females. But essentially, Kaduna, has a population that is in search of jobs, infrastructure, and industry. Our job as government is to ensure that those things are in place. So we have aggressive infrastructure development plans, and we cannot do it alone. We need the private sector to come and support us in doing some of the infrastructure and tolling to recover their investments. Kaduna can absorb as much as $65 billion in infrastructure, next slide, over the period of 2018 to 2050. So we need investors in infrastructure. In the implementation of our state development plan, we aim to consolidate previous achievements and also fast-track our attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. And these are all linked to our policy documents and sector implementation plans. Graphically, these are some of our future plans. Next slide, please. In agriculture, we want to increase the share of agriculture to 40% of our whole state GDP and achieve a 20% contribution for agro-allied output to GDP. We want to develop our electrics and electronic industry to be up to 10% of GDP. Motor vehicle assembly is already big in Kaduna. We have Mahindra assembling tractors. We have Pan assembling some Chinese brands of vehicles. and then at Dangote Peugeot, assembling Peugeot and other OEM brand of vehicles. So we hope Kaduna will be an automotive assembly hub that will be contributing up to 10% of GDP. We hope to revive the brownfield textile industry and provide improved support and services to cotton farmers in the next years. We are investing aggressively in ICT, and we are looking for more investment there. We are investing aggressively in electricity directly as a state government and with other partners. We want Kaduna to be off the national grid within the next 5 years by the grace of God. We want to be self-sufficient in electricity, because a national grid that collapses 7 times in a year is not something to rely upon. So Kaduna will be off grid by the grace of God. We already have the plan. We are building an 84 megawatt gas-powered plant. There's a 215 megawatt Kudenda that the federal government is looking at concessioning to us. We're doing a 100 megawatt solar plant, and more investments are coming. And we're building our own transmission grid within Kaduna, independent of the national grid. We haven't decided whether to be on 66 kV or on 132 kV, but we're definitely going to go through it by the grace of God. Mining and quarrying is a big deal. We've already started mining iron ore in Kaduna. African natural resources will produce the first steel in Nigeria. 60 years after the failure of Ajaokuta, and more than $8 billion sunk in Ajaokuta, not a kilogram of steel. African natural resources with $650 million investment will produce steel in Kaduna, the first in Nigeria, as early as next year by the grace of God. We've also started mining lithium. You know, lithium is a high-value metal now. It's called the new gold, the white gold, and it's needed for batteries, for electric cars, and so on. We are mining lithium, we'll be processing it here, and by the grace of God, before the end of this year, Kaduna will start exporting lithium to the world, the first in Nigeria. We're working also on transportation, both intra and interstate transportation. We're looking at rail freight, we're looking at light rail, and partners to implement that. I can summarize our objectives in one slide, the next one. In terms of job creation and other economic indices, we want to create between 2 million and 7 million jobs by 2050. We want to create wealth equal to about 102 billion by next year, by 2023. We want to increase our GDP by 50%. And because of our stable investment climate, we hope business registration will increase by about 34% before the next card invest in 2023. And the whole objective is reduce what we import and exploit our relatively cheap and skilled labor to produce goods that we can export. So why should we invest in Kaduna? I end my presentation every year with this pitch. We are the easiest state to do business in Nigeria, and our investors will attest to that when they have the opportunity. We have an investor-friendly environment. We have a public service that actually believes it is a public service, that they are servants, that their job is to enable and facilitate and remove your hurdles and solve your problems rather than be the problem. We are the third largest consumer market in Nigeria. We have mineral resources from gold, nickel, lithium, tin, iron ore, and many others. We've registered steady economic growth in the last 7 years. We have a large population, the third most populous in the state, productive workforce, and situating in Kaduna gives you access to literally 52% of Nigeria's market, because Kaduna is in the heart of northern Nigeria, and you can reach any major city in northern Nigeria within 2-3 hours. It is the gateway to the northern Nigerian market with abundant natural resources. In the last 7 years, we have seen our investment portfolio grow to a total of about $4.488 billion. Over $2 billion already realized, and about $2.5 billion announced that we are following up to actualize. In our estimate, we've created about 75,000 jobs, direct and indirect, in this period. So this is what Kite Invest has done to Kaduna State. Many states have tried to do economic and investment summits, but have done 1 or 2 and couldn't sustain it. Maybe because they have not seen the value. In Kaduna State, we've seen the value. We'll sustain this by the grace of God. In fact, we're looking at doing another, the last Kite Invest with me as governor, perhaps in April 2023, just before we leave office, just to round this all up. And the incoming governor has agreed that we should do it. So please vote him in so that we can have another Kite Invest. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening and for your patience, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Malam Nasir El-Rufai, for your recap and presentation on CADInvest 1.0 to CADInvest 6.0, and of course for officially unveiling CADInvest 7.0. Thank you very much once again, Your Excellency. You may please be seated. Thank you. Now, you would agree with me after listening to our governor, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, that that was a very detailed, insightful, passionate, and articulate presentation. When I listened to him, I started to ask myself, is it really 7 years so far? Because it feels like we've been doing this for 50 years. When you consider the achievements, when you consider the results, when you consider all that has been done in just 7 years. Can we please applaud the visionary leadership of our excellent governor? Thank you. Kaduna is truly a trailblazer state. And I like that he also, identified that Kaduna is a gender-inclusive state, because when you empower a woman, you empower a nation. So that is very interesting for me as a woman. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. In the words of Charles Darwin, he says, and I quote, "It is not the strongest of species that survive, not the most intelligent, but that one that is most adaptable to change." And I say this because it speaks about evolution and being able to innovate. So when he was speaking about CADInvest still holding virtually during the COVID year, it says a lot to me, because you must evolve. So they adopted technology to ensure that the summit still held. And that also says one thing. You can see the value, you can see the results. Therefore, this summit must continue, and we must continue to drive partnerships and collaborations with the private sector, with international communities, and of course, with the state government. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Can we one more time applaud our governor? Thank you. At this point, I'd like to specially recognize a very special woman, one who continues to lend her support to the #1 man in Kaduna State. I'm talking about the delectable First Lady of Kaduna State, Aisha El-Rufai. Let's make her welcome with a warm round of applause. Thank you. Because again, we understand that her support keeps the governor going, right? We agree? Thank you very much. At this point, we'll take an address by the special guest of honor, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is ably represented by Ambassador Miriam Yewaji Katagum, the Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment. Please let's make her welcome with a warm and resounding round of applause. Thank you.
Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, CON, OFR, and Her Excellency, the wife of the Governor, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Dr. Hadiza Sabwa Balarabe, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Dr. Mahmoud Abubakar, distinguished and honorable members of the National Assembly here present, His Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II, the 14th Emir of Kano and Vice Chair of Kadipa, the special guest of honor, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, and I do recognize him in absentia, and the former governor of Lagos State and presidential candidate of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, our royal fathers, keynote speakers, eminent panelists, captains of industry, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. I bring you warm greetings from His Excellency, the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, who is unavailable due to matters of state, but who has directed me to present his goodwill message on this occasion. And I shall proceed to read the message. And this is the text. Goodwill message from President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, to the 7th edition of the Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit, CADInvest 7.0, holding in Kaduna on Saturday, 15th October 2022. I congratulate the government and people of Kaduna State on the occasion of the 7th Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit, CADInvest 7.0. The Kaduna State government has consistently hosted this annual summit since 2016. CADInvest has had remarkable success in demonstrating the investment potentials of Kaduna State, sharing lessons learned, and placing on display the readiness of its leadership to embrace and implement necessary reforms to promote economic competitiveness. I wish to commend the efforts of the Kaduna State government as it establishes its credentials as the investment destination of choice in Nigeria. These efforts have received the right recognition as seen in the responses of the business community through the quantum of investments inflow into Kaduna State. It is hardly surprising, therefore, that the state has emerged as one of the leading destinations for foreign direct investment within Nigeria in the last 6 years. The success of subnationals in attracting investments, creating jobs, and increasing their internally generated revenue is critical to the success of the entire country. I'm therefore impressed that the Kaduna State government has, from inception, used CADInvest as a veritable platform for showcasing its investment potentials. The state's commitment to consistent implementation of the Ease of Doing Business Charter is exemplary, including its ability to quadruple its IGR to 52 billion in 2021 from the 13 billion of 2015 without increases in tax rates. Indeed, the federal government actively supports the efforts of its subnationals to promote development in the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. I've closely followed the strides Kaduna State has made since 2015. It was an honor for me to commission the Olam Hatchery and Feed Mill project in 2017, about 18 months after the groundbreaking was done at the first edition of CADInvest in 2016. It is commendable also that investors are creating jobs in the agribusiness sector, taking advantage of the state's prioritization of agriculture. Investments have, as well, poured into other sectors that Kaduna has prioritized, such as ICT, pharmaceuticals, renewables, automobile assembly, housing, retail and mining, especially iron ore and steel. I also note with delight the innovative public-private partnership projects between the Kaduna State government and AREA, which aims at addressing concerns around food security by improving livelihoods while developing a pathway to resolving socio-demographic tensions that we continue to work towards eradicating. Additionally, the ongoing development of iron ore mining and steel processing capacity in the state through investments by African Natural Resources and Mines Limited is especially commendable. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the federal government will continue to support efforts to attract job-creating investments like Kaduna State is doing. We believe that much can be done at the subnational levels to drive human capital development and expand economic opportunities. It is with pleasure that I recall the commissioning of some infrastructure projects by the Kaduna State Urban Renewal Program in Kaduna, Kafanchan and Zaria in January 2022. These massive investments in infrastructure, in infrastructure upgrade that Kaduna State is executing is no doubt an enabler of economic dynamism, apart from its equally valuable significance of improving the well-being of citizens and the attractiveness of our cities for work, ordinary living, and recreation. Given its track record since 2015, I have no doubt that the Kaduna State government and its private sector partners will take full advantage of the economic windows that are being opened by the federal government investments, such as the Ajakuta Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline. The theme of CADInvest 7.0, building economic resilience, reflects the heightened consciousness of the need to safeguard growth and livelihoods in a world that is witnessing severe disruptions to established order. I therefore wish you productive deliberations and further success in developing Kaduna State. This is the end of the text from Mr. President. So personally, I thank you all for listening. God bless Kaduna State, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. It is such a pleasure to have you here representing our President, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you so much, and a round of applause, please. I would like to invite to the stage an eminent personality, a visionary leader, an inspiring Nigerian, and as our governor rightly said, the brightest and probably the most accomplished economist. You're personally an inspiration to me, and I'm sure a lot of us here. His Highness, Khalifa Mohammed Sanusi II. Please, a round of applause, who is also our chairman at the Kadipa board, to please grace the stage and give us a keynote speech. A round of applause, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir Ahmed Arufai, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor, my sister, the Honorable Minister. Actually, she's my aunt, but I call her my sister, metaphorically. My sister, the wife of His Excellency, the Governor, Haja Aisha Omi Arufai. You know, my brother and friend always complains about Kano people coming to Kaduna to look for freebies. But he has no qualms going to Kano to find this wife. And so I'm glad that behind the governor of Kaduna State is our daughter from Kano. And we're proud of you, and thanks for all you've done. Your Excellency, I thank you once more for inviting me to CADInvest. And as you know, I'm actually a student. I've absconded from school Thursday and Friday because having been part of this conference every year, and this being your last year, it was inconceivable that I would absent myself. You've rightly gone over the progress over the last 7 CADInvests, the achievements of Kaduna State since this started in 2017 are nothing short of remarkable. The results are there for all to see. And it is no surprise that all over this country, when people are giving examples of good stories to tell, of governors that are doing what they're supposed to do, I'm proud always that my friend and brother Nasir is #1 on the list. Not that it surprises all of us who have known him since we were 16, 17. I had reservations about his going to politics because I felt, like me, his temperament was not suitable to that environment. But he has done extremely well, and he has survived. And he has left a legacy. My prayer for the state is that we have continuity. For those of us who've lived in Lagos, we've seen how just having one governor after the other build on what the predecessor did. Anyone who knows Lagos 20 years ago knows that has changed in every single respect. It's not just the roads, it's not just the unicorns, even the color of the water in the marina. I mean, really, for those of us who lived in Lagos, it was black. Over years of cleaning it up, it's now actually looking blue. So we do hope, and we have Senator Obasani here, and we hope and pray that you have victory in the elections, and we hope and pray that you continue to build on this. I can afford to say this. I wouldn't say it with any other candidate, but this is Nasir's candidate, so I have to be partisan. And what else? So I'm going to speak about improving subnational resilience against global economic shocks. And as you would expect, a lot of the conversation would be around the macro, around the global economy, around the Nigerian economy, and around the threats that subnationals face and have to deal with. So I will go through the global picture, what I call Nigeria's curse, the state's problems, and some recommendations and perspectives. So if we go to the first slide, where we start talking about the global picture. In a few short months since the beginning of this year, we've seen how the outlook for the global economy has deteriorated sharply. Hopes for a quick resolution of the Ukraine war have disappeared, resulting in a cost of living crisis, high inflation, and as you know, in Great Britain, you already have one big casualty in the Chancellor having had to resign as a result of these crises. Compared to earlier this year, you can see that over a third of the countries in the world weighted by GDP are expected to be in contraction in 2022. In January, it was only 5% of world GDP affected. Now you're talking about countries accounting for 35% of world GDP on a weighted basis going to be in contraction in 2022. That gives you an idea of the world we are moving into. Now there's an interesting thing about the transparency to emerging markets. And I think it's important to look at this particular slide. The red dot, which we're looking at now, deviation from pre-pandemic output trends. The red dot tells us where in January the forecast was for different regions of the world. And the bars tell us where we are today in terms of the latest World Economic Outlook. And what you find interesting here is that if you look at the emerging market developing economies of Asia, the red dot is right inside the bar, which means that the outlook today is much worse than it was in January. The same thing with EMDs in general, same thing with developing economies in Europe, same thing with China, but same thing with Latin America. Now, Latin America and the Caribbean and Sub-Saharan Africa, the red dot is right on the point of the bar, which means that between January and now,